She stood there in front of the bulldozers, waving her clipboard like a sword. "You can't be here. This is HOA property," she yelled. I looked at her, then at the 12 brand new buildings her crew had just finished on my land. I didn't say a word. Not yet. For months, I'd been watching them. Trucks rolling in, concrete pouring, workers shouting orders, all on my open field. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe the contractor got the wrong plot. But when I saw the sign that said Future HOA Plaza, I knew it wasn't an accident. It was arrogance. I tried talking to their so-called president, a woman named Linda. She laughed in my face. "If you knew how property works around here, you'd stay quiet," she said. The way she said it, like she was the queen of the whole town, made my blood boil. But I stayed calm. My father always said, "Never interrupt a fool when they're building their own downfall." So, I let them build. I watched as the mall rose higher every week. Shiny glass walls, fancy parking lots, even security gates. Everyone thought I was crazy for not stopping them. My neighbor whispered, "Man, they're stealing your land." I just smiled and said, "Let them." And now, as the ribbon-cutting ceremony began, with cameras flashing and the mayor shaking hands with Linda, I walked right up the front steps. She froze when she saw me. "You again?" she snapped. "Get off HOA property before I call the police." I held up a rolled document, sealed and stamped. "Oh, please do," I said quietly, unfolding it in front of everyone. "Because when the cops get here, they'll need to evict you from my land." Her smile disappeared. The crowd went silent. For the first time, Linda didn't have anything to say. The cops actually showed up faster than I expected. 2 cars pulling right up to the shiny mall entrance. Lights flashing. Linda waved at them like she was welcoming old friends. "Officers, this man's trespassing," she shouted, pointing straight at me. One of the officers stepped forward, hand on his belt. "Sir, we've got reports you're disrupting an HOA event. Do you have any ID?" I smiled calmly and handed him the paper I'd been holding, the original property deed, complete with county stamps and my late father's signature. The officer glanced at it, then at me. "You own this land?" he asked, sounding unsure. Linda scoffed. "He's bluffing." "We've had this property registered for months." She turned to her assistant. "Show them our paperwork." Her assistant ran over, fumbling through a file folder, but everything inside was dated after the mall's construction had started. The cop frowned. "Ma'am, this says you filed for usage permission just last week." I stepped closer. "You built 12 commercial structures without verifying the deed. You poured millions of dollars onto private land that doesn't belong to you." Linda's voice cracked. "That's not possible. We had approval." I looked straight at her and said quietly, "You had assumptions, not approval." The officer walked over to his partner. They whispered for a moment, then came back. "Sir, can we confirm your background?" "Sure," I said, reaching for my wallet. I handed over my ID, retired U.S. Army Real Estate Division. The look on their faces changed instantly. Linda blinked. "You're military?" "Was," I said, "but I still remember how to handle property disputes." For the first time, the officers turned to her. "Ma'am, we might need to ask you and your team to vacate until this is sorted legally." She exploded. "You can't do that! This is HOA property!" The cop just sighed and said, "Ma'am, not according to this deed." Her face went pale. Cameras kept rolling. News crews were still there from the ribbon cutting. The humiliation hit her like a wave. I didn't move. I just watched as she stammered, There must be a mistake." "No mistake," I said quietly. "You built your empire on my soil." She tried to recover her confidence, adjusting her sunglasses like nothing happened. "This isn't over," she hissed. "Our lawyers will fix this in an hour." I almost felt bad for her. Almost. Because I knew what she didn't. My lawyer had been preparing for this for weeks. In fact, he was already walking up the steps toward us, suit crisp, documents in hand. "Afternoon," he said calmly, flashing a smile at the officers. "Attorney Carter, my client has full ownership of this land under state records, confirmed by the county office." He handed the officer a copy. "Oh, and these," he added, pulling out a few printed photos, "show the HOA's construction equipment trespassing here. Dated, time-stamped, and filed with local authorities 2 months ago." Linda's assistant looked like he wanted to disappear. The officer skimmed the papers, then turned to her. "Ma'am, this looks bad. You may want to call your attorney before saying anything else." But Linda couldn't stop. "You can't sue us for this. We were improving the community," she shouted. "Everyone benefits from this mall." I laughed softly. Everyone but the owner, apparently. Her tone turned desperate. "We'll buy it. How much do you want?" I stepped closer, my voice low but clear enough for the cameras to pick up. "You think this is about money?" I said. "You bullied my neighbors, forged letters, and even fined people for painting their doors wrong. You thought you could build an empire by pushing everyone around. But today, you picked the wrong man." The officer held out a hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you and your crew to leave the premises until this is reviewed." Linda's eyes widened. "You're siding with him?" The officer shook his head. "No, ma'am. We're siding with the law." The construction workers had already stopped pretending to work. A few were quietly recording on their phones. The mayor, who had been standing behind her, slowly stepped away, avoiding her gaze. She screamed after him, "You can't abandon me like this." But he didn't even look back. I folded my arms, watching the crowd scatter. "You said you'd have your lawyers fix it in an hour," I said with a grin. "You might need a few more than that." Linda's face twisted with panic as the crowd started murmuring, phones up, recording every second. The once glorious ribbon cutting had turned into a public disaster. Her voice cracked as she barked at her assistant. "Call the construction foreman. Tell them to lock the site." But the foreman just shook his head. "Ma'am, we're done. We're not getting dragged into this." Then he tossed his hard hat onto the ground and walked off. One by one, his crew followed. Linda turned to me again, trembling, but trying to fake control. "You don't know who you're dealing with," she said through clenched teeth. "The HOA has influence. We have—" I cut her off. "Influence? You mean threats and fake notices?" I took a slow step toward her. "You forged eviction letters, Linda. You fined veterans for hanging flags. You told single moms they couldn't park their cars in front of their own houses. You thought you'd get away with it, forever." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. That's when a black SUV pulled up quietly near the mall's entrance. 2 men in suits stepped out, county inspectors. My lawyer waved them over. "Gentlemen, thanks for coming on such short notice." One inspector introduced himself. "We got a call from the county clerk's office about a potential land violation. Are you the owner, sir?" I nodded. "Yes, and I've got every document to prove it." He flipped through the papers I handed him, and then looked at Linda. "Ma'am, did your HOA file a zoning request before constructing these buildings?" She stuttered. We submitted plans." "Plans aren't approval," he said firmly. You've built 12 commercial properties on private land without authorization. That's not a civil dispute anymore. That's a criminal offense. The crowd gasped. Someone from the local news whispered, "Did he just say criminal?" Linda's knees almost gave out. She tried to smile, but her face twitched. "We can fix this. I'll pay him double what the land's worth." I looked her dead in the eye. "You couldn't afford this, even if you sold the whole HOA. The inspector nodded at the officers. "Seal the property. No one enters until further notice." Linda screamed, "You can't do that." But the officer already taped the yellow "No Trespassing" sign across her brand new glass doors. The crowd went silent again. Only the sound of the plastic tape snapping in the wind filled the air. I turned, looked back once, and said quietly, "You built your dream on stolen ground. Now watch it crumble."